Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, InaneDragon. Tonight, I remind you that I haven't forgotten the intelligent design questions for people who actually know what they're talking about. That's right, we've got two more of William Dembski's attempts to undermine scientific education. If you haven't watched the first two episodes, please do, as the questions we're tackling now presuppose questions 1 through 4 have been asked. Without wasting your time on intro, let's waste your time on questions 5 and 6 instead. Question 5. What are irreducibly complex systems? Do such systems exist in biology? If so, are these systems evidence for design? If not, why not? Irreducibly complex systems are a gotcha concept used by opponents of evolutionary theory to pretend there are systems which could not have developed over time via progression of variant forms and co-opted components. No such system has ever been discovered in biology, as within years of one being proposed, real scientists have produced long lines of examples of intermediate forms of the system or components which could have been co-opted from other functions to construct the so-called irreducible system via relatively minor changes in genes over time. The best that can be said for irreducible complexity is that when intelligent design advocates propose a new system for the title of Darwin Defeater, it gives motivation to biologists to invest time researching some interesting facet of biology that would have otherwise gathered dust while bigger mysteries get tackled. But the biggest problem for irreducible complexity is that it is fallacious by definition. It's an argument from ignorance whereby someone says, I can see no way this could have developed naturally, therefore intelligent design. If you ever found something to be irreducibly complex that wasn't figured out in a few years, the best you could say is that biologists haven't worked out how it came to be yet. That's not really helping your claim. Try again, ignoramus. Question 6. Human designers reuse designs that work well. Life forms also repeat the use of certain structures. The camera eye, for example. Is this evidence for common descent, evolutionary convergence, common design, or a combination of these? First of all, as the question suggests, human designers do reuse good designs. If this were true in nature, we'd see a replication of the eye possessed by squids in vertebrates. We wouldn't see the eyes humans have anywhere in nature. Why? Because the human eye is simply inferior to the squid eye, with numerous flaws in comparison. We have a blind spot in each eye that our brain interpolates around. Our rods and cones are wired in backwards, so the light has to pass through the neurons, strike the back of the eye, and bounce back into the rods and cones. Squids have none of these problems. What we see with squids and humans is convergent evolution. Our respective ancestors started with their respective proto-eyes, and these developed in their own way over the years into our similarly purposed and superficially similar, but wildly different eyes. We also see evidence for common ancestry, because you can trace, not just through the structure of the final product, but in the genes that produced it, the path between our eye and the eyes of every other vertebrate on the planet. If this were evidence of a common design, the designs would look common, not superficially similar in function with deep and extreme differences in structure and genetics. The genetics shouldn't show a pattern of divergence based on ancestry, as it does between, say, for example, rats and humans. Instead, they should show identical genetics with divergence only where careful and precise changes were made in the code for the purpose of creating the differences in acuity between the species. This question, ironically, forces the introduction of some of the strongest evidence in nature against intelligent design. That is, everything I've just discussed on how there's no apparent similarity in design amongst creatures that appear to be similar in design. The appearance of design seen in nature that lets us talk in terms of purpose, intent, and function of adaptations is a product of the algorithmic process known as evolution. All the oddities within nature begin to make sense when you start thinking in terms of random mutation and non-random selection pressures. Where the design analogy breaks down is when you presume that the body plan of a creature was developed in advance to perform a particular function, as it would be if there were an intelligent designer. At that stage, any sensible engineer can start to find innumerable failings and flaws in the design. As a thought experiment, Scientific American published an article back in 2001, linked below, that looks at how a well-designed human meant to last a full century would look. The point is, no designer would produce what we see in nature. Only a mindless process responding to immediate pressures could walk the crooked path of our development. That's 2 more questions down. I promise I won't wait so long to subject you to the last 4, and instead knock this bullshit out quick. The reality is all rational evidence supports evolutionary theory, and nothing supports any form of God in the scientific body of work. I'm InaneDragon, and if you've enjoyed this inanity, consider subscribing for more of the same. My Patreon is slowly growing, and your support will be fed straight into the channel or my alcoholism. Do that rating, commenting, and sharing thing as you see fit. The more exposure I get, the more you can mock my stupidity. Thank you all, and good night.